G'day legends, I hope you're all amazing. On today's video, I am on the latest beta release for the Axe FX 3 and I'm going to pimp my Recto. I've got the Recto 1 red model at the stock settings. I've just turned the overall amp block level up a little bit. I've got the matching 4x12 Recto straight Dynacab. You can see the mic position on there. I've got a low cut at 40 Hz and a high cut at 8K and a little bit of this gold plate reverb in here. This video was inspired by the wonderful people over at thegearforum.com. There is a long thread about dual rectifiers and dual rectifier models on there, covering all sorts of minutiae like pot tapers, different rectifier revisions. Real Rectos went through loads of different revisions. I believe the Fractal Recto 1 is a revision F Recto. I've got a transition model revision F, revision G that you would have heard on the channel before, and it is all over Ragdoll's Back to Zero album and my intro music as well, which is a song from that album called Playing God. So you can hear that one there. What we're going to do is I'm just going to play this on my PRS SC245 for a little bit, give you an idea of the stock tone on there. And I'm going to swap over from this Dynacab to a cab IR that I made of the very cab that we recorded on Back to Zero. It's a Marshall 1960 BV with the so-called good Celestion vintage 30s on it. If you want to learn more about the different vintage 30 eras, I've linked a video in the video description by my buddy John Brown, who's done an incredible superhuman deep dive on vintage 30 speakers. You should go and subscribe to John's channel. John's a good dude. We have a Gear Podcast episode with John talking all about that, but you should go and watch the original video and learn a little bit about speakers and their impact on guitar tones. So we're going to hear that directly between the Dynacab and then this cab IR that I made. That's the end of the preamble. There's timestamps. If you didn't know there's timestamps by now, you've just listened to this entire preamble. And I apologize for all of the verbiage, but let's have a listen to this. Now that's a pretty decent representation of what most people think of a kind of generic rectifier sound. And, nearly every amp modeler since the little kidney bean pod has had some kind of Recto emulation on there. Most of them have been these kind of caricatures of rectifiers where they are overly fizzy and they have too much low end on there. But the most important little tweak, if you want to pimp your Recto to start with, is to turn the master volume down. On my real amp, I think you get to around like 3 o'clock on the master and it just stops getting louder. The reason for this is probably, think of when these came out, the 90s, music stores, you put the amp on like 0.2 and the pots are tapered so that 0.2 is pretty loud and you go, whoa, this thing is so loud, I need to buy one. Imagine what it's like when it's on actually 2 or on 10. And what happens with my amp, and I imagine a lot of other Rectos, is you get to that point on there, like 3 o'clock on mine, and the power amp just gets more and more saturated. It doesn't actually get physically louder. So if you want that big, tight Recto thing on here, turn the master volume on the model down to like around 1.5, somewhere in there. You'll have to compensate by turning up the amp level. Let's just have a listen to that now. Pretty cool so far. Let's actually dial in the amp from here. I always used to turn the bass down on mine, turn the mids and the treble and the presence up. I'd even go for a little less gain and then boost the amp, but we will get to that. Let's just have a listen to these settings. Now, if you're listening to this going, oh my God, why is that so fizzy and annoying and just generally gross sounding? That's the point of a Recto. You put this in a mix, you double track it or you quad track it, and it absolutely crushes like nothing else. Let's go into some of the kind of deep tweaks you can do here. I guess emulating modifications people might have made to their amps, or emulating the inconsistencies in Mesa Boogie's production on here. One thing is you can go to the Ideal tab. If you want more of that kind of boogie bacon sizzling sound on there, turn the bright cap up to around 500 hertz on there. Let's have a listen to that. That is pretty cool. Another one that I saw pop up is if you go to the Power Amp tab, and this is something I've never played around with before, but the master volume cap value, turn it up to like between 15 and 20 picofarads or something like that. Maybe let's go conservative and go 15. Let's have a listen to this one. That little master volume cap tweak is pretty cool, but you could also just turn the treble and the presence up if you wanted some more brightness out of there. It's really up to you what you want to do here. Again, it's a real advantage of something like the Axe Effects. It gives you all of these controls that you can tweak to your heart's content, or not tweak them. I thought that sound with everything at the stock values was pretty usable to start with. So I'll turn the treble and the presence down a little bit on here. The other thing that is a massive part of the sound of a Recto, rectifiers don't have negative feedback, so they are very sensitive to the type of cabinet they're connected to. Different cabinets are going to induce different impedance behavior in the power amp, and the Axe Effects models this on here. So if you turn this off, you can select between a whole bunch of different things in here. I really like this 4x12 Recto straight impedance curve with the Recto. It's one of those things, the real boogie oversized cabinets, kind of nothing else really sounds like them. And even though this IR that I'm using is an IR of a Vintage 30 in a Marshall cab, I'm copying the impedance behavior of a Mesa cab, which is pretty darn cool. Let's play Dogman again with this. get this massive bass boost that's kind of unlike anything else on there. So I love those tips in the amp block, playing around with the bright cap value, playing around with the master volume cap in there. I think the speaker impedance curve and bringing the master volume down so that the power amp isn't saturating a massive amount are probably the two most important little tweaks in there. From there, you can go and boost this thing. I've never recorded a Recto that wasn't boosted, so what I'm going to do is turn the gain down a little bit. Let's pop a drive block in front here, and we'll go through some of my favorite little boost options. I'll just run through them. There's 4 different ones: a tube screamer, a clon. I forget what the other 2 are, but they'll pop up as you see them. As you would expect, the precision drive is pretty sick, and the OCD, if you crank the drive up, you can kind of get fuzzy, doomy tones out of that. Throwing a fuzz in front of a Recto is awesome as well. Alternatively, you could use the preamp tab input boost in here. I really like the grinder boost in here if you want to go for a kind of super modern, tighter Recto thing, something like this. I'm gonna pull up stumps right there. That is plenty of Recto nerdery for today. Don't forget, there's more than just the Recto 1 models in there. The Recto 2 models I think sound really, really good, and there are the vintage modes modeled in there as well if you don't just want to do chugga kind of stuff on here. But these amps are very, very good at chugga kind of stuff. So this is Recto 2 Red Modern. I'll play you all out with this one just for something different. I've just kind of dialed it in similar to number 1. Let's go to the speaker tab. Let's turn the auto Dynacab impedance off and use this 4x12 Recto straight impedance curve. And let's roll with that precision drive model in here because I quite like that. I'll let you hear it without, and then I'll let you hear it with it. And just keep in mind as well, this guitar is in drop C. So if you're playing in drop D or you're playing in drop B, drop A, you are going to want to tweak these things differently. You're going to have a different low end response because of the tuning, and this guitar is a little bit darker sounding than, say, my PRS DGT. So I'll also give you a little sample of the DGT in drop D at the end as well. If you've got any questions, let me know in the comments section below. Check the video description for ways to support my channel, as well as the forum thread that I mentioned and John Brown's channel, because there's some really, really good stuff in there, all in the pursuit of glorious tone. Have a great day. I'll see you next time.